I am about to expose the biggest lie that you're being told for fantasy football in 2023. And considering I haven't seen anybody else create content on the numbers you're about to see, it means I'm the only one that's telling you the truth. Headliner Nation, the debate rages on. Running backs early or wide receivers early? And now, more than ever, people are shifting their thinking that they want to go wide receiver early for one reason that is absolutely wrong. And a video of this magnitude absolutely deserves an awesome giveaway. So keep watching, because in a few minutes, you're gonna find out what you need to do to be a part of it. But let me give you a quick explanation about the numbers that you're gonna be seeing right now. Because if you've been watching our videos, you would have seen over the last week, I posted 2 different videos about the riskiest running backs and the riskiest wide receivers in the NFL. And for those videos and the research I did, I went through and I logged every game for the top 20 running backs from last season and the top 30 wide receivers. And then I broke out where they finished for each game. How many games were they a top 12 player, a top 24 player, a top 36 player, and how many times did they finish outside the top 36 at their position on a weekly basis? Now, for the sake of this video, I'm gonna tune it back to only the top 20 wide receivers. So then we have the same number for each group. But at the end, I'll go over what the top 30 numbers look like as well. Before we talk about either side of the spectrum, top 12 performances and performances outside the top 36, we need to start in the middle first, and it's gonna make sense why in a minute. So let's start by taking a look at the top 20 running backs and top 20 wide receivers and see how many times those players finished anywhere from 13 to 24 at their position last season. Last season, the top 20 running backs gave you 86 performances where they finished anywhere from 13 to 24 at their position. And that was good for an average of 4.3 top 24 finishes. However, the top 20 wide receivers had 71 total performances where they finished anywhere from 13 to 24, which was good for an average of 3.55 top 24 performances. So right off the bat, you can see that the top finishing running backs last season gave you more RB2 performances than what the wide receivers gave you wide receiver 2 performances. But let's move on to top 36 now. Last season, the top 20 running backs gave you 59 total RB3 performances, or they finished anywhere from RB25 to RB36. And that was good for an average of 2.95 RB3 performances. The wide receivers, however, only had 44 wide receiver 3 performances. Again, finishing anywhere from top 25 to top 36. And that was good for an average of 2.2 wide receiver 3 finishes. The top scoring running backs have more RB2 performances than the top scoring wide receivers have wide receiver 2 performances. And the same thing goes for RB3 and wide receiver 3 performances. But this is where things get really interesting. Why don't we go ahead and dive into top 12 performances first? But before I do that, I'm gonna be giving away an autographed Joe Mixon jersey to somebody in this video. And it's super easy to get in on it. The only thing that you have to do is subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Hit the like button if you haven't done it already, and leave a comment down below. Your comment needs to read either hashtag team running back or hashtag team wide receiver, and then anything else you want to add to the comment. When this video hits 1,000 likes, because I know we can do it, I'm gonna pick one of the comments in the video to win the autographed jersey. And like all of our giveaways on this channel, it's brought to you by our friends over at Pristine Auction. And if you want to grab something super sweet for your place, head over to pristineauction.com. Use code word headliners when you create a free account, and they're gonna give you a $10 coupon to use on your very first purchase. But that's enough for the giveaway. We need to jump into the numbers that are gonna blow your mind for this video. We're gonna be talking about how often a running back or a wide receiver finishes outside the top 36 here in just a moment. But we're going to start with how many times they finished top 12 at their position first, because we want our players scoring as many points as possible, so we'll start there. Last season, the top 20 running backs gave you 121 total RB1 finishes during the season, which was good for an average of 6.05 RB1 finishes. However, the top 20 wide receivers only gave you 101 wide receiver 1 performances, which was good for an average of 5.05 wide receiver 1 finishes. Those numbers are absolutely mind-blowing to me. But here's some more about top 12 finishes that is really going to get you going. Last season, there were 3 running backs that had 10 RB1 performances throughout the year. There were no wide receivers that had 10 wide receiver 1 performances though. On top of that, there were 6 running backs that finished as an RB1 8 or more times. Ladies and gentlemen, sit down and buckle up. There were only 2 wide receivers that had 8 or more wide receiver 1 performances last season. So right there, if you have any type of an argument that wide receivers give you more upside than running backs, that would be extremely incorrect. And all of that information that I just gave you absolutely proves it. But having great upside is fine. We're talking about having some risk here as well. Oh man, wide receivers, when you talk about guys finishing outside the top 36, it doesn't get better. The top 20 running backs last season had a grand total of 57 games where they finished outside the top 36 at the running back position, which was good for an average of 2.85 games outside the top 36. The top 20 wide receivers finished outside the top 36 at their position an astounding 101 times last season. That means the top 20 wide receivers averaged 5.1 games outside the top 36. And for those of you wondering about the top 30 numbers, because I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I had originally pulled all of those numbers as well, it doesn't make it any better. The top 30 wide receivers actually go from averaging 5.1 games outside the top 36 to averaging 6.13 games outside the top 36. And you're wondering if any of those extra wide receivers helped in the wide receiver 1 numbers. No, they didn't. In fact, the number drops. It goes from averaging 5.05 games as a top 12 wide receiver to averaging only 4.26 games within the top 12 as a wide receiver. In my risk videos, I use the same formula for both positions. There were 6 running backs that had a risk score under 2.0. Cooper Kupp, who was injured for most of the season last year, was the only wide receiver to have a risk score under 2. And for running backs, there was only 1 running back that showed a risk score higher than 3.0. But there were 8 top 20 wide receivers that came in with a risk score higher than 3. In fact, the highest risk score that came in for the running backs was at 3.05. I pulled the top 30 wide receivers. That score would only have been good for 13th among those top 30 wide receivers. Listen, I'm not gonna hack your computers and force you to draft running backs this season. Do whatever you feel is going to be best for your team, your league, and your league settings. But all of these numbers that I just showed to you very clearly state that running backs not only have more upside, but they are far less risky than what wide receivers are. And if you want to argue, but Kyle, running backs get injured more often, well, I'm going to shoot that down too. Because last season, there were 7 running backs drafted in the first round of fantasy drafts that missed a total of 10 games. There were 5 wide receivers drafted in the first round last season that missed a total of 13 games. Last season, less wide receivers were drafted in the first round, but missed more time. And if you want to argue, well, Kyle, look at the injury numbers from a couple of years ago. Yeah, I saw it. Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, all missed an extended portion of the season. But that was 2 years ago, and honestly, a little bit of a blip on the radar. This video may have been the most important video that I have ever done here on the channel. And it absolutely destroys the arguments that wide receivers from a statistical standpoint should be drafted over running backs. It also destroys it from an upside perspective and a risk perspective as well. Because if you focus on the running backs that you believe are gonna finish with inside the top 20, those are gonna be the guys that are gonna give you the best performances throughout the season. And maybe you'll find some of those guys in the first round. Maybe you'll find them in the second or third. Maybe you'll get lucky and find them in the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th round. But whatever it may be, stop dissing the running backs just because you think they aren't holding their weight to the wide receivers anymore, because they are much better to have on your team than those wide receivers are. Don't forget, before you get out of here, leave a comment down below, hashtag team running back or hashtag team wide receiver, and let me know what this video did for your thoughts on your draft this year. And make sure you hit that like button, because we need 1,000 likes for me to pick somebody to win that Joe Mixon jersey, and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Headliner Nation, I'm gonna get out of here. Make sure you save this video to come back to later. Peace out, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see y'all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.